You're welcome to Morning Express. Welcome back from the break. Now let's open up the floor for conversation here on the program. In the studio, we have Mr. Moses Idika, who's a regular on the show, a friend of the station, and also a public affairs analyst, to talk to us this morning about certain key issues in the news. A very good morning to you, Mr. Moses.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for finding the time to come around.
You're welcome.
Well, first things first, we saw that the FEC, alongside President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had recently placed a ban on the creation of new federal universities and private universities, even colleges of education and polytechnics in the country, a 7-year ban. Now, this is due to some certain concerns raised by the Minister of Education, Dele Alake, as well as other stakeholders within Nigeria's education sector. How did this news come about to you, Mr. Moses, when you heard of the 7-month ban? And do you think it's necessary?
Well, at the level of the government, it might be necessary because we can say let the government fix existing universities. Yeah. But extending it to private organizations and individuals who may want to establish these institutions is what I don't really feel comfortable with, because education is a sector on its own and it can't stop growing, and it has a way, of contributing to the economy as well. It creates employment for people.
Yes.
And then, you know, the brain drain that we'll keep talking about, private universities or private tertiary institutions are now one of those areas, one of those sectors that, you know, kind of retain those brains in the country, because every PhD holder, every scholar, every academic may not necessarily work in a government institution, state and federal. So the private institutions are there to absorb them. And a lot of Nigerians too, a lot of academics also practice in that they are employed in government universities or institutions, and they still help those private universities. So somehow it augments what they earn. So when you place a blanket ban, then it's a problem. Ordinarily, what the government should have done is to create clear-cut milestones and parameters that if you have to establish a federal or a university or a college of education or polytechnic, you have to meet these parameters in terms of infrastructure, in terms of location, in terms of the staff. So anyone that meets that parameter, then the person should go ahead.
Now, some of the cases that they had raised at the Federal Executive Council meeting was they blamed overstretched resources and a drop in academic quality, while citing that over 1,200 staff members serve about 800 students in one federal university, typically in Nigeria. Are these concerns valid? I mean, talking about a drop in academic quality, does that necessitate a total ban of creation of new universities for 7 whole years? And what is the aim of the federal government with this decision? Do they want to revamp the education sector? Because it appears that there is a plan, but Nigerians are not seeing a clear-cut definition to that plan yet.
Well, that is begging the question, in my opinion, because the government knows exactly what it needs to do to revamp the sector.
Yeah.
Over time, academic staff union of universities, they have been banding around strike threats here and there. If it's not at national level, it will be at internal level in the individual universities. And why this happened is because the government doesn't keep to its, part of the bargain.
Yeah.
You have an agreement with staff that welfare is going to be done this way. Materials for learning is going to be improved and all this, and the government never keep this, they don't keep these promises.
Yes.
So that is what is affecting the quality of education. It's not what they are trying to do now, banning, because if you ban establishment of new universities, well, fine, it still doesn't stop good brains from seeking employment abroad. The issue should have been, why are Nigerian academics emigrating?
That's a big question.
That is why the standard is dropping, and the government is not taking the bull by the horn. Let me give you an example. Just last week, WAEC released results in multiple folds. They withdrew some results, released it. So you don't even know the measurement anymore. The WAEC is unable to grasp, to transit from normal pen and paper to electronic, as they keep saying they are doing CBT and all that. You saw what happened in JAMB. We lost a very young Nigerian because JAMB misled the little girl that she failed, and perhaps she
committed suicide.
She committed suicide. So, and heads didn't roll. We saw the JAMB registrar shedding crocodile tears on TV, and at the end of the day, the family lost.
Well, Mr. Moses, how would you know if it's crocodile tears? He seemed really remorseful, and for a man of that nature, of that caliber, a full-grown man, to shed tears on national television and apologize for the misdeeds of an organization that he's heading, would you still call that crocodile tears?
Yeah, it was, because you could see it was choreographed.
Okay.
As he was shedding tears, his staff started clapping for him for crying on TV. So what do you make of that? So when the government is unable to tackle those issues, till date, we don't know what happened that led to the loss of that young Nigerian. And that is just one. A lot of young people went into depression, because what happens to teenagers, especially when they know they did something right and the adult in the room is telling them the other way, so it affects them, it affects their confidence. So when you look at the falling standard of our education, it starts from the primary schools. The only way you can get the standard of education up again is to get it from the scratch. All over the world, it is the basic education that is the foundation for whatever PhD you are going to get later in life. If you don't have that basic education, then you don't have anything.
Now, when you were talking earlier, you cited that private universities are the ones now retaining those brains that were being drained by public universities, the brain drain that has always been complained about. However, in recent times, we've seen people, just businessmen, setting up, high institutions, not for the purpose of passion for the education sector, but mainly for the purpose of profit making. Whether it's up to standard, whether it's at par with other, private institutions that are doing well, they do not care. A rejection of about 350 private varsity applications was made just before the 7-year ban was placed. Why do Nigerians want to set up 350 new universities in the country, in addition to the hundreds of private universities that are already existing and the public universities, state-owned, federal-owned universities that already exist? What is the rush into the education sector? Is it that lucrative now?
Well, that is one aspect of the matter. The other aspect is that there is a total loss of confidence in public education in Nigeria. So, and it is now because of this devaluation of the naira and the economic, it has become more difficult for people to send their children abroad to study, because sometimes you have to pay as high as 50-60 million if you convert the rates. Now, for that, a lot of people also now want to patronize the private universities. Now, in patronizing the private universities, recall that people will always tell you that some universities in the past have place adverts saying that your 4 years is your 4 years, because it's assumed that in the public universities, strike might make you spend 7 years ordinarily for,
or even double the amount of years you're supposed to spend.
So these are the things that have made Nigerians to lose confidence in the public education system. But also the proliferation of these applications comes from the fact that the regulatory agencies, NUC, the Federal Ministry of Education, NAPTEB, and the rest of them, they are not doing their job very well. Because if you travel by road across Nigeria, you see very big billboards, so university, and when you pass through, you just see one bungalow somewhere, and it amounts to university. And if you check, NUC actually granted them the license to start a university. So if the government, the only thing the government should do ordinarily is to up the standards, that if you have to establish maybe a specialized university or a general university, you must meet this. This must be on ground. And this, these are things that can be proven. You have this number of teachers already employed, and you have this fund to be able to take care of their emoluments. Then you have this structure to cater to their needs, including accommodation. Because what you see around, even in state universities, is that they no longer factor hostels into universities anymore, especially in public universities. Many state universities in Nigeria do not have hostels.
Due to the lack of ability to manage these hostels, or what is the problem exactly?
It's because it's part of funding. If you look at our old generation universities, Nsukka, Ife, Unilag, ABU, and the rest of them, they were properly planned. Staff quarters, student hostels, cafeterias, business areas, banking areas, then the academic section. So that is how universities, that is the standard. So you stay
in the university, you don't even have to step outside the gates of the university for anything.
That, if you have that kind of situation, you find out that most students will actually go there, concentrate, and learn. If you remember the concept of town and gown. It's like creating like the gown, the university community, the town. There is a gulf, there is a gap, and you create a way of meeting. But these days, the concept of town and gown no longer applies because there is no difference. The university community is no longer distinguishable from the town, because the students just live there. And you see that universities are unable to take care of the psychological and social needs, and of course,
and that's why
that's why you see all these things happening.
You find situations where perhaps a student even gets expelled from a university, but they still stay around. Because of some of these irregularities. They can't even leave. Because
ab initio, they weren't even living in the academic environment. So you don't know. And of course, you also have people who parade as students of those schools, and they are never the students, because there is no way of determining who,
or distinguishing them,
who is a student and who is not. So if the government is serious in revamping education, it has to start with UBEC. We have to have primary schools properly monitored, staff properly paid, learning facilities properly in place. If you have that, it goes to secondary school. By the time a child is leaving secondary school, the child is already educated. Going to the tertiary institution will now be specializing in any field of their choice. But you find out that even young people now leave the university without being educated. They don't have the academic skills required of someone who has gone to the university. They can't conduct basic research. They can't, and so that is what has led to the collapse of this education system.
And even within the university, there are instances where projects or whatever it is, assignments, you just go to a cyber cafe, or you go to somewhere where somebody takes it up and does it for you, gives you the copy, you submit. It's a trend that has become normalized to the point where a university student goes through the four walls of a classroom of a university, graduates, but they can't do the basic things that they were supposed to, in quotes, have been doing in the university throughout the entire 4 or 5 years that they were there.
Let me give you, to buttress your point, let me give you an example of one of the sad situations in Nigerian universities.
Okay.
2 months back, a friend of mine is a researcher, and he approached one of the federal universities of agriculture to use one machine to analyze her object of research, or his object of research. And it turned out that the machine has been there in their lab for years. Nobody in the department could operate the machine.
Oh.
Nobody. So
even the lecturers.
Even the lecturers, they can't operate the machine. And this is something that is basic. Very, very basic. I'm sure that machine should be over 20 years old. It's not like it's a robotic arm kind of thing. Yes. So that is the collapse, the level of collapse in the system. People come in, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
If you go to universities, you find out that students don't use the library, school library, departmental libraries. You hardly find a student
those libraries have more or less become storehouses.
Storehouses. So that is the tragedy of the education system in Nigeria. So when the government is taking these cosmetic decisions, banning, why not? Okay, you say that there are too many vehicles in Nigeria, and perhaps they are rickety. No more importation of vehicles. Why not, like, if this vehicle doesn't meet this specification, it doesn't come in, it doesn't go through our ports. So you are working on the standard. You are not just taking these blanket decisions that end up, another government will come
and lift the ban.
Because what they have projected is, assuming Mr. President wins a second term, well, during our own term, we are not going to allow establishment of a new university. Any other person comes as the president and they say, let us lift the ban. What have you done? You haven't done anything. But if you say that existing universities will give you 6 months, 1 year to get to this point,
if you don't get there,
yes,
you'll shut down.
In terms of the kind of infrastructure you provide for the student or the academic community, in terms of the number of lecturers you should have for you to get accredited for any particular program, until you have done that. Because I know a little about the university community. You find out that there's this annual ritual of accreditation, reaccreditation of courses. What schools do is sometimes, if it has to do with computers, they could rent computers, put up in a very big lab, and then
take pictures of
it, get some lecturers. They can even give employment letter for the purposes of that accreditation. NUC team will come, they will lodge them in a luxury hotel, prepare certain packages for them, they will come, go around, take pictures, and that is accreditation. Whereas if NUC actually wants to do its job, it must not necessarily announce that it's going to any particular. If you want to find the truth, why not have an ongoing program in place whereby inspectors can go to universities, interview students, look around, do their independent reports, and then so okay, you gave someone accreditation today, why not go back without informing them? Maybe in 2 months later, find out those things that you saw, those learning materials or equipment you saw, are they still there? Those lecturers that presented themselves as faculty, are they still there? So these lacunas exist in the education system, and until government or regulatory agency tackle them, we can't get any good results.
Well, Mr. Moses, we'll move on to another conversation, but that will be right after this break. We've established the center stage for conversation on the program this morning with Mr. Moses Idika. When we come back, we'll still stay with reactions trailing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's recent order for review of revenue retention by NNPCL, the Nigeria Customs Service, FIRS, and many more others. Do well to stay with us. We will be back in a moment. Express. Now to continue the conversation, I heard earlier I laid a brief introduction to President Tinubu's most recent order for a review of revenue retention by NNPCL and other institutions within the country. Now, Mr. Moses, I don't know if you were privy to this news or if you have heard it. What is going on in the sector? Why is we all know President Tinubu is keen about taxation, revenue generation, and all of that. But is there something underneath the waters that we are yet to see?
Well, it's one of the decisions I like, because in Nigeria today, you see federal government agencies that will say they are revenue generating agencies, and they operate like a federal republic of their own.
Yes.
So the retention we are talking about is you generate 1 naira and you are supposed to retain 2 naira to service your machinery for the revenue generation.
Yes.
But what happens in Nigeria, in NNPC, FIRS, almost all the revenue generating agencies, is that they become overlords even on the government.
Yes. They decide on what to
remit. They'll bring up all manner of accounting jargons to bamboozle the public and the government.
And confuse them.
Yes, we've seen it in the National Assembly that these agencies, they just feel so powerful. They just feel so powerful that they bandy a lot of humongous amounts in the media, but you can't seem to get to see it. That is why you hear 1 trillion naira, 300 billion being looked at. They are looking for 300 billion, they are looking for 1 trillion naira, and you begin to wonder what is going on here.
I mean, if you lost 10 million naira today, you would know where it went to.
Yes.
So how is it possible that an entire institution is losing trillions of naira, and then anti-graft agencies like EFCC and ICPC say, oh, we are still looking for these funds? No trace at all.
Now, the crux of the matter is the opaque nature of our public institutions.
Yeah.
If you look at FIRS cannot give you a chart of this is the amount of revenue we generate from. We have 774 local governments in Nigeria, and FIRS should, at the click of a button, tell you that in Q1 of 2025, in this local government, this is how much we generated.
Yes.
And this is where the money is. In Q2, this is how much we got from local government, 685. And this is how, by percentage, what it has done to overall revenue, customs, and the rest of them. You just hear these big amounts, but we don't know how much gets to the federation account.
I mean, the likes of NNPCL, the likes of the Nigeria Customs Service, FIRS, and I think one other government institution were sometime last year applauded for meeting and even beating the benchmark for projection, revenue, for revenue generation for 2024, even before the year had elapsed.
Yeah.
So why are we still seeing some of these bottlenecks? Is it that when the target has been hit, the excess funds is now meant for squandering? Now,
it starts with this. If you go to customs or FIRS, you don't know the salary structure of the staff of FIRS. You don't know how much they earn. We've heard from the National Assembly that sometimes they award millions of naira to certain level of staff,
Yes.
for housing, for medical, for all this. So what they just do is that they reward themselves at the expense
via allowances.
Yes, at the expense of the general public, at the expense, and these people are staff of the federal government of Nigeria. So I'm in total support of the decision of the president that it should be reviewed, and in reviewing it, it should be made clear that this is the percentage that should go into this, because what we see in all these institutions is that they embark on massive building projects for their head offices, for their regional offices. They build beautiful houses
As quarters.
and quarters where but their job, their earnings as an institution does not reflect on the overall lifestyle of the government. You see that some government agent, that is why you see you don't see FIRS really recruiting, you don't see all these revenue generating agencies, coming out to say we are recruiting.
You just hear that.
You just hear that they recruit every day. So the opaque nature, it must be unbundled. Until you unbundle it and make these institutions accountable to the Nigerian public, we can't get anywhere.
Now, I just want you to react to this reassessment which the president has directed of NNPCL's 30% management fee, because you spoke about percentage earlier. 30% management fee, 30% frontier exploration deductions. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, there was some sort of shake-up within the NNPCL, and it seemed as if Ojulari was about to step down. And then, the razzmatazz and the magical theatrics of the typical Nigerian setting, we didn't hear anything about it anymore, and he continued. Could this have been a little bit related to what had happened a couple of weeks ago? And what do you make of this 30% management fee and 30% frontier exploration deductions?
Well, much as we don't know exactly how they created these percentages, but from that, already 60% is gone. So, and that is why NNPC is the worst managed national oil company on the planet. We've heard that in UAE, for example, we've seen documentaries that you enter a room, and in that room, it tells you to the least cubic of the amount of gas extracted
every single
day. That any drop of crude leaving the soil is accounted for.
Well documented, and the information spread out evenly.
Yes, and when that is done, you already know that the money is going to be accounted for. And that is why Dubai, Doha, and the rest of them are the way they are. But you have in Nigeria where NNPC is even in the business of hawking petrol, because by having NNPC filling station, what they are doing is they are hawking petrol, and that is no national oil company
being a player in the industry and an umpire in the industry.
So there is no other national oil company that is behaving the way NNPC is behaving.
Are you talking about retailing now?
Both retailing and in terms of accountability. They have what they call JV, joint venture arrangements. We don't know exactly how much is coming from each of those joint venture agreements. Now, this exploration, that they have made it so impossible for even the government to know. And that is why you see that from Obasanjo, presidents started becoming ministers of petroleum because they want to know what is going on. So at the end of, and that is where it becomes even more opaque, because the GMD of you have GMD of NNPC, for example, you have Minister of State. Minister of States, just the two of them, they brief the president, and then if the president is good with them, that's all. So the Nigerian public that actually own both the NNPC and the presidency
are in the dark.
Are in the dark. So I think that the government must take bold steps. They've been saying bold step does not amount to removing subsidy that affects the people on the street.
Yeah.
Bold step is making Nigerian institutions to work for Nigeria. Let FIRS work for Nigeria. Let NNPC work for Nigeria. Let Nigerian Customs, NPA, and the rest of them, let them work for Nigeria. How can they work for Nigeria? They can only work for Nigeria if Nigerians know that this is what our agencies are generating. And this is how much they will be paid for generating this, because they have to be paid.
Yeah.
But in paying them, then they have to remit. It's a shop for Nigeria as an entity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know how much comes into your shop, then you don't have a control. So the government must be bold enough to unbundle these institutions to the point that we can say that in 2025, for example, NNPC, in 2025, going by maybe 2 million barrel per day production that you tell us we produce, it's only in Nigeria that we don't improve our production output. It's instead of improving it, it goes down. But if you say we are producing 2 million barrels and it is a daily production, then by December 31st, 2025, we should have, irrespective of the shocks of international pricing of crude, we should have this amount of money.
Yeah.
That way we can plan. That is why we can plan, because no Nigerian government in the last 50 years can say that we've generated this and we've spent this. Yeah. Everything is always hanging, and that is what has led us into debt. We can't talk to the details because there is no detail to speak to. There is no detail from NNPC, there is no detail from FIRS, because accountability means that we don't have to become chartered accountants to be able to know what is coming into our country
and how these funds
are. But in Nigeria, they want us to all become forensic accountants before we can get to know what goes on in our public institutions.
Well, let's leave the matter of the president's orders let's lay that matter to rest. Mr. Moses Idika has indeed done justice to the conversation. However, we hear that the president is set to jet out once again for the third time in 9 months to Brazil. He will be visiting Brazil and Japan. These are the informations reaching us. Now, the president's visits to Brazil have been well applauded on one hand, criticized by opposition members, that he keeps jetting out to different countries, particularly Brazil. This is the third time he's going there, and yet it appears as if Nigerians are not really seeing what the president has been going there to do. And like the president would always say, be patient. Should Nigerians be patient and continue to wait for these juicy benefits that might come from his international trips every now and then? Well,
ordinarily, there is nothing wrong with the president. He can't sit in Aso Rock as a leader. Nigeria is a very important country in this earth.
Yeah.
And whatever happens in Brazil will one way or another affect Nigeria. We have Nigerians in Brazil.
Yes.
And we even have a Yoruba community, native Yoruba so we have that connection with them. But that said, the problem with the visit of not just President Tinubu, but Nigerian governors, presidents, ministers, is that they will always tell you that they are going for trade talk, they are bringing FDI and all that. But they have left the real things.
Home governance.
Because Brazil, for example, has an embassy in Nigeria. And in that their embassy, they have intelligence attaches who feed the country back. And for example, Brazil produces some of these jets, CRJ and the rest of them. They are good in automobile. They have also, so now those companies in Brazil, for example, they also have, they get feedback from the embassy here.
Yes.
And if the embassy here, they must give them proper information, because no Brazilian business will come to invest, for example, in a place where it has to provide water for its factory. It probably has to grade its road. It has to provide security.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the tax system is in chaos. So you find out that it will be easier for perhaps the Brazilian company to produce in Brazil and find whom to sell to in Nigeria, instead of, okay, we have a good place in Nigeria, we can actually produce in Nigeria. It becomes easier for us to perhaps use Nigeria as a takeoff point.
Yes.
We produce in Nigeria. We don't just sell to Nigeria. We sell to perhaps ECOWAS nations and even expand to other parts of Africa. So until the home ground is soft enough to accommodate, to absorb FDI, all the trips will amount to waste of public resources.
Yeah.
So that is the issue. The Nigerian government officials should not forget that you can't bring in a foreign direct investment to a place that is so dry that it can't sustain the investment. People will always tell you that Nigeria is a place you get your ROI is high, but it's hardly so, because in Nigeria today, you don't, like we spoke about the education system now, competence is an issue in Nigeria. If you want to even produce in Nigeria, you may not even have competent workforce to man a lot of advanced tech machinery and all that.
Yes.
And that is because our Nigerian government has not invested in our education system. Of course, social infrastructure that makes businesses thrive is not there. We don't have the road to transport heavy goods. Our roads are not good. So what are you going to do? Until you have fixed all these things, then you can't bring in anything. The other thing is just diplomatic junketing that they do, and of course those who accompany them, they get their benefit for traveling abroad, and that's all. It doesn't change anything.
Well, let's see if this president's particular visit to Brazil and Japan would bring about the FDI that you have spoken about. I mean, the eyes and ears of Nigerians are always open to see and hear what the presidency has to say, and in as much as the president, yes, is actually on his toes every now and then, moving around the world to bring about these FDIs, it's about impact. It's about feeling and seeing the impact of some of these trips. And that takes us to the next topic of discussion, where we hear that the House of Representatives Committee on NG Cares on Wednesday began investigation into the implementation of 1.06 trillion naira, about 696 million US dollars, Nigeria Community Action for Resilience and Economic Stimulus. Now, this is, as they say, Nigerians are not feeling the impact of NG Cares. This is a very serious matter on the table. Almost 700 million US dollars and over a trillion naira. We were talking about trillions of naira earlier on, and here we have
another set
of the House of Representatives, probing what those funds have been used for, because it appears that Nigerians are not feeling it.
It still comes back to the talk shop that they have made National Assembly to be.
Yes.
In the last 20 years, of all the probes that the National Assembly carried out, the only one that got somebody's head to roll for is one that got Honorable Farouk into jail. And Farouk was supposed to be the one leading the probe, but he got
But he was the one being pro.
And he got the table turned. So that is the summary of the probes of the National Assembly. Nigerians are losing confidence very fast because we've heard of these probes. At the end of the day, we don't get people tried. Nigeria, this National Assembly, they spoke about the Nigerian air scam that the past government superintended, who had an airline and all that. Today, those who were mentioned are everywhere holding parties going around.
They are not being held accountable.
They are not being held accountable
for the sham that they played on Nigerians.
Yes, we heard of the probe of NNPCL. NNPCL must have been probed for like 20 times. We don't get to hear that. We heard of social investment program probe. Nothing. We don't seem to.
So here we have another one. Once again coming
because you know the problem with all these handouts that government do. It's they want to bribe the general public, the poor, for example, and you bring. There is no country that thrives on handouts that can get anywhere. You don't bring out a large chunk of money you give this person. For example, you give me 10,000 naira today. Next month you give me 10,000 naira. I perhaps relax.
Yes.
And then the 10,000 naira will never become any. It can't do anything. But what happens all over the world is that government brings stimulus packages that will make the people to work, because it is only when people work that the economy booms, that everybody benefits.
Yes.
But when you single out a group of persons and then you give them money, it can never be accounted for, because you also find out that you use money to go give the money, and then at the end of the day we are neither here nor there. Okay, it's like the issue of those people in IDP camps across Nigeria, like we heard in Yewata, in
the IDP camps in Borno.
Yes,
that's so one of the states that has the highest number of IDP camps.
You hear that they have brought 2 billion to give them in the IDP, but the fact is that after giving 2 billion, 3, 4, 5 years later, these people are still in the IDP,
and they have not been able to move out.
Their condition becomes worse. Whereas you could actually spend that 2 billion, resettle them, make their villages safe again, and if their houses were burnt, you embark on a massive housing project that everybody can get a room. If you get a room, then you provide the security that is needed. They can now go to their farms. You find out that the community will become more prosperous, the economy will boom, we will have more food, and then the people now kind of pick up again. They begin to forget the horrendous experiences they've had. But in a situation whereby someone is in an IDP camp, you come, you give him 1,000 today, by the next 3 days, the 1,000 is finished. He's still where he is. He's still hungry. So that is the problem with all these kind of Nigeria kind of social intervention
programs, safety nets, palliatives. At some point, the current administration was almost dubbed the administration of rice, or the government of rice. Because almost every single form of palliative, except for monetary funds that have been sent out,
they'll give you rice. And the rice, they give you rice, they don't give you charcoal or gas to cook it, and then there is no tomato to cook it, and at the end of the day, even if you decide to eat it white rice, no problem, it will finish and you'll still be hungry. So the probe, what the National Assembly, the 10th National Assembly should be doing is how to revamp Nigeria and Nigerians. And how do you do it? Get Nigerians to work. Nigerians are people who believe in hard work. An average Nigerian doesn't believe that you should come and be giving him money. You should provide an avenue for him to prove himself that the dignity that I'm a human being, I can earn a living. So after the probe, what next? So personally, as an individual, I do not have any confidence, and I believe that a lot of Nigerians feel the same too. I do not have any confidence in the outcome of whatever is going to be of the probe, because it won't change the situation of those in whom, in whose name the money was pulled out. $700 million in a country of 200 million people is a drop in the, it's nothing. $700 million cannot really revolutionize any state in Nigeria. So it means that public officials picket government posts.
Well, a fine way to leave the conversation here, Mr. Moses Idika. I must thank you so much. It's been wonderful having this conversation. I wish we had more time, but hopefully, come Thursday next week, we'll hope to see you here again in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Well,